I don't know. That's the second time I've done a Freddie Mercury type intro. Anyway, this is Kurt Cinema Podcast. We're back at episode 7. My name is Jeff. I'm joined by Kyle. We are going to talk about things that we've been watching, and what's the other thing that we do? Oh, yeah, that's right. Pick 5. We're going to do
Pick 5! All right.
Pick 5, and in the spirit of John Wick Chapter 4 coming out tomorrow, as the time of this recording, tomorrow night, we are going to do an action-oriented category for Pick 5. We'll get to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We did have.
Can I say? Am I allowed to say? Can I say? Am I allowed to say? Very excited for John Wick 4.
Can I just say? Can I just say? Let me just say something.
Can I derail everything that you're doing right now? So I can just say I like. I like John Wick, and I'm excited for the 4th one.
I'm so pumped, dude.
Yeah.
It reminds me of. I was recently watching a couple of sketches that Ryan George, the pitch meeting guy, did of him spoofing podcasters, and they're boring
Cats
white.
One?
Yeah, the Cats one, and then he did another one where it's just generic white guys on a podcast.
I've seen both. Yeah.
Yeah, and the one where he's like, let me ask you this, 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 just over and over.
They do that though.
They do that though.
That is accurate. Yeah.
Like when you watch a 2-person podcast where it's like Theo Vaughn I've been watching a lot of lately, and Santino's podcast, they are very good about staying away from that because they're just insane people. They make dumb jokes. They love doing that stuff.
Right.
But yes, there's definitely some of that with. I'm probably guilty of it too. That's probably why it made me laugh so hard is because I'm like, yeah, I totally do that. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't do it. You know, we're not as dramatic. I said it like 5 times, but like, I'll be like, can I just say?
I just want to say one thing.
That's what we're here. We're here to say. We're here to say stuff. So yes, you're always allowed to. That is literally the point. Yeah. I wanted to start with at least a brief, not really a recap of like every category or nothing, but the Oscars did happen, and then we had like a week off, and then the Oscars happened like 2 weeks ago now, and Jimmy Kimmel hosted it. And it was long, like they all are. It was like 3.5 hours. I was almost as long as the Game Awards. Wow.
It's almost as long as I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. The Game Awards are pretty long, but they pad everything with trailers and it makes it fly by.
It's more, I'm more enjoying the Game Awards, but both I'm just like, I've got work tomorrow, guys. Like,
yeah,
you need to wrap this up, whatever we're doing here. Yeah.
Stop doing these on Sundays.
Best YouTuber who farts on stream. I'm like, there cannot be a category for this. Like, this is crazy.
They're getting there. They're definitely
best coach for fart videos. You know what? There's coaches for these now. Like, I'm out.
Best producer. Best fart producer. And no, this is the award for the guy that, not for the guy that farts, but the guy that produces what kind of fart comes out of the person that farts. Okay?
Takes a true
artist. Very
artist.
Specific.
Takes a true artist.
Takes a true fartist.
That was right there.
We're already going off the rails, but the Oscars did happen. I don't really have a whole lot to add to what already happened because it was a very safe show. Either fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you ask. You know, I wanted more drama because I like that type of stuff, but it was pretty safe. Kimmel was funny, you know, for the most part. Sometimes there's a couple jokes that he always misses on, but I would say that happens for every single host, period. Like, just, you know, not every joke's going to land. It happens. I was mostly cheering for Everything Everywhere All at Once, you know, the entire ceremony. So I think they won 7 awards and they were nominated like 11 or so times or something like that. Mm-hmm. Something crazy. But they definitely won a lot. And in categories that I was like, oh, that person won that? Oh, my God. Like, Jamie Lee Curtis was not projected to win until like the day before the award ceremony.
Everyone switched their votes or something?
Yeah, it's like the betting odds switched. Like, people just came into new information and suddenly she was the favorite to win, which is great. I mean, I like that she won. It's just she wasn't, like, for this year, she wasn't my first choice, obviously. Like,
yeah.
I watched the movie again after it won Best Picture. And
she really sells that role, though, to be
really
fair.
funny in the movie.
She's funny. Really good, yeah.
She's that whole, like, kicking scene where she's kicking in slow motion. It's so
down the
absurd.
stairwell or whatever. Yeah.
She's committing, and her nipples are, like hardened through her shirt, but they're, like, askew. Clearly, like, they did that on purpose, to make her look just kind of, like, messy as a person. Comically messy. she contributed a lot to that role, but it's just, I preferred the girl that plays the daughter. I say girl, like she's not my age. But I can't remember her name. Stephanie Hsu, I think. Whatever.
Not Awkwafina, because she was originally up for that role.
Yes, she was.
She was originally up for that role. Yeah.
Honestly,
thank God. Yeah, I have nothing. I feel like I have to say this every time I bring up Awkwafina. I have nothing against Awkwafina. Yeah. She would have not been good for this role.
No, I agree.
Who they went
something
with?
Something about the script
is amazing.
Where it's Michelle Yeoh is like. By the way, the script won Best Screenplay as well. I mean, they won all pretty much the important awards, with the exception being Best Actor, because there was technically no Best Lead Actor in the movie. It was, it was Michelle Yeoh and then ensemble all the way down. But Brendan Fraser won too, and that got me all sorts of emotional seeing that.
Yeah, him and Key both got up there.
Oh, dude.
I'm just like, you guys need to chill out with your humble good guy thing. That not that it's an act, but like.
and they even brought up
very impactful.
I think it was Kimmel that brought up the parallel of their careers and how they were both in Encino Man together. And which I used to watch that all the time when it came out on like home video. And I haven't seen it since then. I should probably watch it again, honestly. It's probably not going to age well, but I still want to see it again. It's
not many movies from that time do. So.
Oh, no, you're right. You're totally right. But it is interesting. Like they both had kind of a similar trajectory where they both either gave up on the industry, the industry gave up on them, and they were both kind of done at different parts of their lives for different reasons. And just the way that they found their way back, or whoever, casting directors found them again for those roles. It's just such a freaking powerful story, dude. Like it's kind of like the Daniels they're not brothers, the guys that directed the movie. When they won Best Picture, or it might have been Screenplay, they both were like, because they wrote and directed the movie, they were both like, or one of them said, this is not normal. Like, he's like, yes, I want to be an inspiration for people, but this is not normal. Please adjust your expectations. You're not going to win awards. And I think that's like kind of like the same with, I don't know. It's a very inspiring story with Fraser and Key. So like, just adjust your expectations. All I'm trying to say. Don't give up on your dreams, but like, I'm just saying, be realistic about it if you're going to keep pursuing your dreams in whatever field you're in. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, Ke Huy Quan's speech was just so wholesome. And just, I think it was like the second speech after Del Toro won for Pinocchio. And he was like, animation's not a genre and yada yada. And I was like, yeah, I know. That's why it's not a genre award.
Yeah.
They're talking about the actual skill of animating. They're not saying animation's a genre. Anyway, yeah, it was just like a great way to kick off the whole awards giving ceremony. And then people kept talking. And then award, when they win an award, they just keep going and going. And you're like, oh my God.
Who do they think they are? Kratos? What is this? What is that?
You won best like set design or costumes. Shut up. Bro. Like it's cool who won the things that, whatever. I'm happy for them, but like, dude, bro, like know your award category. Like if you're a short film winner, and there's 3 categories for short movies still, that means you get a shorter speech. Stop talking so much. You should get like 30 seconds and you're off the stage. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like, come on.
I'm here for that.
Anyway, immensely happy that Everything Everywhere All at Once won Best Picture, because like I said, I watched it again after it won. And I was like, even as the credits rolled, I was like, how did this win Best Picture? It's just so out there and not like this feel-good drama or what do you call it? Trauma porn drama, where it's like Schindler's List or something like that, which is a great movie, but it's like
right.
Those
but you're being emotionally manipulated.
Yes.
To that whole experience. Yeah.
It's just you don't see a movie where there's like people with things sticking out their butts fighting each other, and the fight choreography is awesome. And it's like
it's not only that. I mean, it's all of that, but it's not only that, and it's also just like when you're pitching it, you're like, well, it's a movie about the multiverse, but it's really just a wholesome family story.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Exactly.
Like it's so many things, but like at the heart of it, it's this very simple thing that like everybody's just like, yeah, it's a good message. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a quality message, and the multiverse thing you could argue is just a metaphor for something else. Like it's really not an actual multiverse on a literal level, because there are things that characters are saying as like a just a throwaway line
and then that throwaway line becomes another universe later on in the movie. So this could all just be stuff that's happening in her head. And then there's that one universe where she ends up in where she chose to leave the IRS office with her family. And I think that's the actual, like, what's happening there is actually what's happening in real life. That's my guess anyway. Where like she loses it at the laundromat during the party and stuff like that. Yeah, I think all that happened. But like the stuff that like the Rakakuni universe, like she mentions it as like a throwaway thing, and then like her daughter and her husband.
You mean
like,
Ratatouille? And she's like, "What are you talking?" Yeah.
It's like, oh, I love that movie. Oh my god, Kiwi Khan is so good in the movie. So like, and then that becomes a universe later on. So I feel like there's a metaphor there if you want to look at it on that level, or you can accept it on surface level. That's the thing with the movie; it works on multiple levels. That's why it's so freaking good. Anyway, I love the hell out of that movie. But yeah, moving on to things we were watching. Should we start? Let's just start with something new, I guess. Keep things a little relevant, I guess.
Sure.
I was going to talk about Shazam, as I call it.
Shazam, everybody. Doing real well at the box office, not so much, but that's all right.
Fury of the Rock, I mean the gods. With all that drama. I was going to talk about that, but I feel like we covered it. So much drama. It's fun to read as a totally outsider to all of it. I feel like we covered it sufficiently on the Current Gen podcast. So everybody go listen to that if you want, because me and Derek both saw it and talked about a lot of specifics. I did allude to, and I think it's all in the marketing now, I did allude to a cameo that happens in the movie. And then I think since we talked about it on the Current Gen podcast, they've shown it in trailers everywhere, right?
No, that's the thing, is that I saw it before we recorded that podcast too. I've been seeing that TV spot since before the movie came out.
What the heck is wrong with them? But
yeah, I thought there was somebody else. I thought y'all were building up some other big, and I'm like, oh, it's what they've been showing that.
Oh, it's like Superman or Batman or something. Yeah, no, it's not
I thought it was someone huge. Yeah, well, not that whoever doesn't show up is huge, but I saw them. I'm gonna try and keep it just in case no one's seen it yet.
Yeah,
and in the YouTube TV spot, or I don't call them TVs, but the ads.
I can't believe they did that. That's so wild. Yeah. But actually, I will say they had, Black Adam was more like kind of like the reports have been saying and the rumors have been saying. The Rock did the Superman cameo, which, sorry if I'm spoiling that for anybody that hasn't seen a 6-month-old movie yet. That's not very good.
That universe is dead. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, who cares? But he clearly got that cameo in there so The Rock could fight Superman. Not that Black Adam could fight Black Adam is just The Rock. So he wanted The Rock to fight
Superman. I haven't thought about it on this level, and that is so true.
It's so true. That's how it comes
He's like, I'm going to kill Superman on screen.
Yeah.
So everyone knows it's written in my contract that I can't lose. So at best, we're drawing, like.
So like the cameo made
no. What a tool, dude.
We've definitely made a 180 on him ever since reading all these reports and stuff. Maybe it's because we're just, I don't know, gullible in that sense. But I feel like I feel like everything's kind of lining up with what the rumors are saying. I really do feel like he is.
Well, and
really
a lot of long-standing rumors are now making sense too. Where it's like, oh god, has he just been kind of difficult along?
Yeah, the Fast and Furious thing. Now I'm like, I'm not saying Vin was right or anything.
No. I just in fact, Vin is always wrong as often as I can make him wrong. He's wrong for sure. But also,
both of them had the biggest egos imaginable. That one of them had to leave. Just had to go down that way. So we're definitely making a 180 on the public perception of The Rock because of all the news that's come out about him mixing certain cameos that would have actually made sense for Shazam, including mixing his character, mixing it up with Shazam on the big screen.
I heard it was like for petty. He's just like, I won't be a cameo in somebody else's movie. Like I heard it was like petty like that. That's why he didn't want to do it. That sounds
like his. Yeah, that definitely sounds like his thing for
sure. But that's other people's where I don't know. Again, I don't know how much of the rumor mill here is like feeding into.
Yeah, because there's like official reports that come out right from like Hollywood Reporter or whatever, and then you hear from Joe Schlubby Pants from middle of nowhere, North Carolina. Oh, I have a source too, and let me pile on here. And you're like, who are you?
It just takes one person to say that, and then somebody else picks it up, and now the Nerdist is running a article about or something like that.
All that to say, I still like the movie Shazam, Fury of the Gods, but all that to say, the cameo in that movie actually does make a lot of sense. Like from the beginning of the movie, they're making references to that person.
So it tracks better than just random Superman coming in at the end to vaguely threaten the anti-hero. But anyway, the movie I wanted to talk about, and I'll probably talk about this less than I just talked about The Rock. The movie I wanted to mention was Boston Strangler. It's on Hulu.
Oh yeah, I wanted to watch this.
Yeah,
or maybe you're gonna tell me not to here. I don't know. I'll stay tuned.
I'm on the fence, like with how I felt about it in terms of like whether I liked it or not. So I'm kind of like in the middle somewhere where I'm like, yeah, it was okay.
Okay.
It's definitely it's a serial killer story that's kind of set in that, what is it, the 30s or 40s or something, I think. I think it's like Prohibition era or whatever. But it is a true story, based on a true story, where there's this person going around Boston strangling women. Like he's knocking on their doors and being like, I got to check your radiator, the super sent me. And as soon as they open the door, this is what made him really hard to find back then. There was no forced entry. So he would be let in, and then after like maybe a few seconds or even immediately, he'd just start immediately strangling the women. And they're almost always, I think they were all women, if I'm not mistaken. Some were older and some were younger. So this movie's definitely trying to be like trying to do the Zodiac thing. But I don't know if they dove into the obsession part enough. Like with Zodiac, at a certain point, you're like, all right, dude, Jake Gyllenhaal's got to let this go, man. Like he is, healthy. Like, and in Boston Strangler, they try to do some of that a little bit, but I never felt that Keira Knightley's character was unjustified in how she pursued the case. Like she's just a reporter, but I never the whole time, because this is
a female reporter in the 30s.
Yes, it was in the 30s, so everybody was like, "What are you doing here, Missy? Are you lost?" Like everybody was doing that whole shtick.
See, and there's cigars in their mouth. Yeah,
she's fighting blatant sexism on top of a story that the police or whoever don't really want to cover all that much, and they're not really taking it seriously because they're like, whatever. It's to them, it's just like, it's women or whatever. There were different sentiments.
Well, it's sadly something that we saw in the 60s and 70s with minority groups when they were targeted in serial killing sprees. So like, whatever, and then it's a lot of ineptitude.
I know Dahmer's a little more recent. He's in the 90s, but or that's when he was caught at least. But that's another example. Like shoddy police work. It's very thoroughly covered in that miniseries of like how horrible the police work was just because they were like gay minorities or whatever. For the most part, but it's kind of similar in this one. But yes, there is a certain point where like her family or her husband gets a little frustrated that she won't let go the case. And I'm like, yeah, but look at everybody else. Everybody else is made to look so dumb at the police station, for the most part, and her boss, like everybody's kind of made to look a little idiotic if they tell her to back off. That I'm like, well, I never once was like, you need to back off, Keira Knightley, you need to stop being so attractive and back off or whatever. I was never like,
yeah, sure.
Whereas with Zodiac, you're like, come on, dude, like back off.
Right.
But other than that, it was just, I don't know. They try to hit you with like a little bit of a conspiracy in the last like 10, 15 minutes. That I don't fully buy, especially because of the DNA evidence that was later found in 2013-ish. They found new evidence that physically tied the person that was accused of the crime to the final victim. So they were, I was like, oh, well, then that was the guy the whole time, wasn't it? There were many theories up until that point that, this guy was, not doing it alone, or he took the fall for other people or something like that. But it's kind of one of those things where, you claim to catch the wrong guy, but the killing stopped. So you really get it's kind of like with the not with Zodiac, but there's another case where somebody got caught and everybody was like, well, that's the wrong guy, and it's like, yeah, but everybody stopped dying. So you're really gonna tell me that's
right?
Or I think maybe the Mindhunter killer they were building up to. I think people were claiming that he did not kill as many people as he claims to have killed, because he claims to have killed upwards of like an insane amount of people, right? I can't remember how many, but it's like, yeah, but those people stopped dying, so like he probably did. But anyway, it's interesting if you don't know anything about which I didn't. I went into the movie not knowing anything about the Boston Strangler story.
I don't know much about him. I know just that the name, and I didn't know it was from the 30s or 40s. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like around that era. I was almost going to say 60s, but I was like, no, the fashion was a little bit older. It was definitely more like when the American dream was alive and well, that type of era or whatever.
I've seen that in textbooks.
Yeah, exactly. Where they're all building new neighborhoods and all that stuff. Yeah. Keira Knightley is good in it. Carrie Coon plays another reporter.
She's always great.
Yeah, she's amazing. She plays another reporter, but she's more like a veteran one, whereas Keira Knightley was like a lifestyle reporter that just got this was her first big case that she'd ever gotten for the newspaper, whereas Carrie Coon is more of like a seasoned veteran who's used to being talked down to and treated, poorly just because she's a female reporter around these parts. Golly gee. It's still, I still say it's if that type of subject matter and time frame interests you, I mean, you're still going to come away from it going, that was interesting. At least there's that.
Yeah.
It's just something about the pacing and just the fact that Zodiac did the best version of this already. Like, it's just
right.
I don't know.
It's like when a lot of things try to be 7. Like, I know that we have better versions of it these days, but like after 7 came out, it's like, stop. There's already a good version of that.
And they actually did kind of 7 it up a little bit because it was like always raining, and I'm like, is this Chicago? Like, no, I guess it was an unnamed city in 7, but it was clearly
it's Chicago.
It's clearly supposed to be Chicago.
Like 1,000% of Chicago. Yeah, it's an undescript city.
Yeah. But there was a lot of rain and like overcast, and I'm like, okay, this is 7 at this point. 7 in the 30s, 730s.
Yeah, 730s.
Anyway, what's another movie that you watched that's kind of new or new adjacent, whatever?
I got a 2023 movie, and you've talked about it on this podcast before, but we can talk about it just for a little bit more. It's Infinity Pool with the Skarsgård and the Mia Goths and the Cronenbergs and all that stuff. I really enjoyed it. This is his son, right? This is David Cronenberg.
David Cronenberg's son, Brandon.
David Cronenberg's son, Brandon Cronenberg. Yeah, that's right.
I think so. Yeah.
I like this movie quite a bit. It's really tamed, which you said as well originally. It was even more tamed than you teed it up to be, and that's not a criticism. Like, it actually made it a much more like, maybe I could recommend this movie to somebody. It's not it's not like complete torture porn.
It's so true. I mean, there's definitely some scenes where there's stabbings, and I'm like, oh god, please stop doing that. But it changes.
It's a disturbing premise too. That I could see many people being like, I didn't really like that. I'm like, well, you're not supposed to. Like you're supposed to feel icky about. That's the point of the movie. And that's I don't want to give away too much because I didn't know what this movie was about really at all. You kind of alluded to that it was a kind of another fuck the rich type of movie, and I'm like, cool, I like those. Yeah.
That's how it hit me, at least by the end.
It is. It was.
I think the end really sells it too.
Big time. And basically, it's a movie that's exploring consequences and the lack thereof, and it's a really interesting and what money buys you and what situations are just out of your control and what are in your control. So it's a really. I don't want to call it a basic story, but easy to follow. We're like something like Possessor. There's multiple times where I paused and I'm like, do I need to look up the wiki on what's going on here?
Who's in whose head at this point? I'm
It's this is a much more straightforward movie, and it's really interesting. And I think I waited a good long while before Mia Goth really gothed out, and boy, she gets there. She gets there hard.
she only alludes to it in the beginning where she has a scene on the beach with Alexander Skarsgård's character, and I'm like, oh, there's the weirdo. There she is.
Yeah.
And then it's not until later where I'm like, oh, that wasn't weird at all. This is weird now. Now she's
it's funny. The original scene you're talking about, I'm looking down at my phone for a second to check something, and I look up, I'm like, what's going on here? Because it's a very wacky scene. And it just kind of alludes to the the seductive chase of of a novel experience or whatever, and again, these are a bunch of rich people who have kind of the funds and the pool to again chase these kind of Oh, God, I'm just trying to dance around spoilers, but like chase scenes like really frivolous and fleeting, but powerful moments that they can, kind of live and relive and everything.
They're living out their, in some cases, violent or sexual urges.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're
off the map basically. They're like, they're able to do whatever they want pretty much without
consequence. Yeah. And it's really cool, man. I actually really enjoyed it a lot, and they set up some really cool sci-fi ideas that really inform the concept of the movie without it being too sci-fi like possessive.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's not like, the main concept, but it does drive them to do more pretty heinous stuff.
Yeah. Like the way they explain it, I'm like, oh, I can buy into this. This is an easy buy-in, you know. So but I just really enjoy it. Skarsgård's awesome in this movie.
Oh, he's so good.
Boy, whoever knew that pasty vampire boy was going to turn into such a. I know like there's a dynasty of great Skarsgård actors. Like I'm very aware of it. I'm not.
I thought you were going to say I know there's a dynasty of pasty vampire boys being good.
Yeah, well, there is now with gigantic success stories.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the Rushmore of pasty vampire boys who've made it.
But you're right, because he had the Northman, and he showed the hell up for that. That was one of his best roles post True Blood, for sure. But
even what's that Skinwalker movie that we watched, like with what's his face? You know what I'm talking about? Where like he played an American soldier, and then like it's all about like werewolves, pretty much, like skinwalkers. And what's his face?
Sounds so familiar.
I know you watched it. I can't think of what it's called now, but like he's great in that, and he's great in like there's military movies that he's been in the past. Like Skarsgård's always been a good actor, but he's reliable. He's really been showing up like these last couple years. And again, like the very first thing I saw him in was True Blood, which I just hated everything about that show.
It's I hated it. I hated it later than you did, like because I stuck with it. I finished it, and then when the finale ended, my parents and I were like, they did not stick the landing at all. That was ass. That whole season was terrible.
Yeah, right.
Like
everyone's gonna die of vampire AIDS. Sorry, everybody. I mean, not that he was bad in that show, but like it's not a it's a usually have you seen a lot of those other people? Exactly.
Yeah, what happened to Bill?
He married Rogue, and they both went nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Anna Paquin I still see in stuff on like TV shows and stuff like that, but that's it. They're not really doing much else. And then of course you have the really very attractive redhead still showing up every now and then in some roles. She was in the old movie.
What's her face? Yeah, Daredevil girl.
Karen Page, yes. Yeah. She was in the old movie that I watched, this is a brilliant segue, by the way.
Let's go right into it. I like Infinity Pool. Great. All right.
Infinity Pool. This is great. Great movie.
Yeah.
To us, at least. Not for everybody, but great movie.
If you ever wanted to dip your feet into Cronenberg, this is the easiest dip in, I would say.
Yeah. I would say so too, actually. As far as modern Cronenberg goes, like maybe Infinity Pool, then go Crimes of the Future, and if you can stomach both of those, then you can get a little wackier.
Crimes of the Future is really wacky to me.
It is, but I would say Infinity Pool is less wacky, so that could be like a stepping stone.
Yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. For sure.
But anyway, the movie that I watched was one that you recommended a long time ago when we were doing a podcast on. I don't even remember which podcast it was. If it was There Is No Podcast or Enter Tournament, I have no freaking clue.
Could have been another multiverse. We don't know.
Yeah. But the actress we were just talking about, the redhead, I think her name Deborah Ann Woll. She's briefly in this movie. It's called Ruby Sparks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She's Paul Dano's ex-girlfriend in the party.
Boy, scene. You got a little Dano in your life. I remember liking this movie, but I can't remember why.
You recommended it to me because this movie was like 2010 or 2011 or something like that. So it might have still been fresh in your mind when you actually recommended it to me, because I think it was like 2015 or 16 when you actually threw it out there like, hey, this is a cool premise.
I really liking this movie.
Yeah, it's such a great premise of like this guy is like writing. It's kind of like a Stranger Than Fiction premise, but it's a more specific version of it, and not so much like Stranger Than Fiction is. I think it's a great movie, but it's a little bit more like. It's a little bit more like generalized, the concept of her writing something and it's affecting this random person's life, whereas this one is directly impacting the author's life. In front of him, he's writing this this dream girl that he's literally dreaming of and falling in love with, and then poof, she's suddenly in his life for real off of the words that he typed on a typewriter. And apparently it adapts to, he can type anything related to her personality, and she takes on that personality. Like, there's that part where he's like talking to his brother about her, and he's like, I swear to God, she's straight off the page. I can make her look what I can do. And he's like, he makes her speak French, nothing but French. And that's such a great scene too. Like, Christmasina plays
it is coming back to me now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great cast, by the way, through and through. Like, it's just really impressive what they put together for being such a like early 2010s indie movie. Because Zoe Kazan, she wrote it, and Paul Dano, I think she was already dating him at the time. So she wrote him as the lead. And then who else is in it? Chris Messina is the brother. I mentioned him. I think the actress who plays Marlene is in it too, from Last of Us. And then who else is it? Annette Bening, I think, plays Paul Dano's mom, and Antonio Banderas, I think he's like her boyfriend or something like that. I think it was like kind of clear that Paul Dano didn't really care for him. Like, he was kind of being, I don't know. He was like everything Paul Dano wishes he was, basically. He's just charismatic and outgoing and extroverted.
Right.
I can see why you like this movie, because he had a lot of personality quirks that I was like, it kind of reminds me of Kyle.
Yeah, well, and like I remember, like, I was writing a lot at this time, and so when I saw it, I was just like, oh yeah, this is like infinitely relatable. Because I remember there being a lot of struggles with his writing, and then this kind of thing happened to him where he's able to like write her in, and I forget all the specifics, but I was like, oh yeah, this is all like,
well, it's the fact that he gets to a certain point with Ruby where they kind of hit a lull, because this is what happens to everybody that gets what they want all the time. Is eventually you get tired of the thing you have that you wanted your whole life. And so he starts to change things about her. Like, she's like, let's spend some time apart. And then he gets lonely, and he's like, then he writes her to be clingy. He's like, I want her to be, to not be able to live without me. And then it gets comical to a point where she gets upset that he let go of her hand when they were holding hands walking down the street. And she like literally stops and starts crying for Zoe Kazan is so good in this movie.
I remember that scene. Yeah.
But there is some part of it where like she becomes a little more outgoing than him, and he starts to resent her because of it, because he's so introverted. Like, it's the extroverted introverted side of him is always battling, and the introverted side ended up kind of winning when he and Ruby started arguing and stuff like that. So it's like the introverted part of him. I was like, there's some Kyle right there, like.
Yeah. No, I remember
a lot of stay in and like not be around.
I remember that a lot of the relationship stuff was like really like resonating at the time too. Because like I was dating a lot back then, and now I'm too grumpy and old to do all that. So
this is truly a great movie, though. I highly recommend going and seeking it out.
I'm gonna rewatch it because I remember really liking it.
Hulu. I was just scrolling through Hulu, and I was like, I've been meaning to watch that. Yeah. And it's the second directorial effort from the Little Miss Sunshine duo. So
which is why I think I watched it, because like I'm not the guy who finds hidden indie gems. Like, I like them, but like usually they're recommended to me, and this is one that I'm like, I found, because I remember seeing the trailers and seeing that who was attached to it and stuff like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I really like Little Miss Sunshine.
And it's got a great poster of Paul Dano. Like, there's words on a page behind him, and Paul Dano is literally taking Zoe Kazan, like carrying her away from the words on the page. It's like she's made of the words or whatever. And that's true. That visual is truly like the movie. Like, Zoe Kazan specifically wrote it to be like, how men have this weird, impossible standard for women, and it plays throughout the movie too. Like, it doesn't come off to a point where like, well, this is a man-hating movie. It doesn't come off that way at all. It's more to do with how men are as indecisive as they claim women are. Like really, that's
right. Well, it's another kind of like 500 Days of Summer style thing where it's like your male hero is not like a truly good dude, you know what I mean? It is a very flawed, kind of selfish individual that learns a lesson by the end of it, but like through kind of being a selfish asshole a little bit.
Exactly.
Which I kind of like those movies, because like those are our chick flicks, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and while you're not supposed to be cheering on for these people and what they want, like you shouldn't be able to control women by typing. We're like, that's kind of it's kind of Emperor Palpatine evil, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah,
but the lessons that they learn through doing these asshole acts, like I don't know, it's good brain food for dudes.
I don't remember who wrote 500 Days of Summer. Probably a dude, and that's probably why there's a lot of people that don't like it. Because they look at it from that lens and go, "Oh, that's not dudes aren't nice," and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. But Ruby Sparks being written by a woman, it just wouldn't have played as well if it were written by a guy and he's just able to write a dream girl the whole time and have fun with that more or less. Like I preferred the existential,
me too,
kind of like I don't know, inner struggles that the main character had to go through, which I don't feel like. Yes, plenty of male writers could have written that, but I just feel like Zoe Kazan was able to get there in a much more smoother way. She's a good writer, man. I think she and Paul Dano co-wrote Is it called Wildlife? Something like that. And Paul Dano directed it, and it's Jake Gyllenhaal and Carey Mulligan, I think, and they're like divorcing.
This sounds amazing.
They're going through a divorce, but it focuses on like the kid in the marriage, like the kid that he's watching. It's through the kid's eyes. He's seeing his parents fight and stuff like that. It's a great movie. Obviously not as conceptual as Ruby Sparks, but
sure.
It's way more grounded, but that is a great. I'm just trying to say those two are very talented, together or apart, does not matter. I'm glad they're together though. Power couple right there.
Yeah. They're still together. Okay, great.
I'm glad. Yeah, I think so. I think they're married now. Anyway, I'm glad we started podcasting when we did, so you could recommend that to me, and I could think about it ever since you recommended it to me for years.
I'm surprised. All this time later, you remembered this, and for a second, I'm like, I don't know what movie that is. But no, I remember the second you started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, this is not really much. I was really a big cuck for this movie for like a whole year. I was like, no, my sensitive writer self, who's almost, who's turning 30 or just about to turn 30 at that time or whatever, found this movie that like I really connected to and resonated with, and of course, all this time later, I'm like, This
would have been like kind of like how when I saw Tick Tick Boom, it was like this was 2 years ago or whatever. I already talked about it on the podcast, but I saw that at the right time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like had I seen Ruby Sparks around the time you did, it probably would have hit me the same exact way, and I would have been like, "Where was this movie my whole life?" Like,
yeah.
The Tick Tick Boom ended up being that for me, and it still kind of is. Anyway, the movie's awesome. What's an old movie that you caught recently?
I've been in a really anime mood lately. Been catching up on all sorts of anime and everything like that. So I got bit by some kind of bug that will probably only last about 3 weeks, and then I'll go back to watching, good old American stuff.
This here's America.
So I was watching like Attack on Titan. I've been catching up on a new show that I can't even pronounce right now. That Mark got me into. My longtime buddy. He's my anime guru. He's the guy. If he says I should watch something, like I'm like, okay. If you're recommending it to me, like I should probably watch this.
Yeah.
Anyways, the old movie I watched because of this mood I'm in was Akira, which was my first anime, like Japanese anime movie I ever saw growing up. Mm-hmm. And it dawned on me while I was watching it, might have been my first cyberpunk thing I'd ever seen.
Oh yeah.
How it was so strange because I always kind of likened it to the I'm like, Matrix was kind of maybe my first like big cyberpunk thing I ever got into in terms of like aesthetic, you know what I mean? Not like just that type of genre or whatever. Mm-hmm. But this is very much like because I saw this before I saw Blade Runner and stuff too, which maybe Blade Runner, I saw after the Matrix, so still like we're not, that's not even the first thing. But there's holograms everywhere and flying cars and just the aesthetic of Blade Runner. Think of that, that's kind of what Akira went with.
There's a lot of color in Akira, like
very color. Yeah,
for
Matrix
1980, is more like grays and blues and greens, and they're all dark. And muted.
For an 80s like anime, which I'm sure it's been cleaned up over the years, like it is a very pretty, anime, and I know the voice acting got better over the years because I remember watching it even as a kid, like I was like, oh, this is awful, and now it's not
I think
so
they
awful.
Redubbed it like twice since.
I think it's gone through some changes, What a wild movie this is. I really enjoy it, and it's just a crescendo of weird, but I was really appreciating kind of like the background storytelling this time around, where just kind of picking up stuff in the background and kind of like little things of how the world was working and everything, and just the guerrilla fighters that are like fighting because they were moved by the idea of this like holy being called Akira, so like they're fighting to free these super powered kids, that the government are weaponizing and using and stuff like that. And like this struggle amongst all of this, the powers of Akira being born in this like weirdo boy who's got a real big chip on his shoulder about everything. And it's just interesting. I really like this anime a lot, and I go back to it every few years, and it'd probably been about 10 years since I've seen it now. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this is like why I fell in love with this stuff, and fell in love with anime in general and everything like that. Someone showed me this real young, and it was just...
Yeah, I was gonna say this movie came out in '88, and the fact that you saw it before like Blade Runner and you had
Blade Runner I was super late on, you know what I mean? I didn't see Blade Runner until like 2004, 2005. I was still in high school, but I was graduating high school.
Oh, I see. So, okay, so I saw it much after, like 5 or 6 years after that, yeah.
Yeah. So I was late to Blade Runner, and then at that time you didn't know which version you were supposed to watch too. So I think I watched the theatrical cut, and I was like, "This is awful." And someone's like, "No, you gotta watch the director's cut, man." I'm like, "Whatever."
And then the final cut didn't come out until after we graduated. The final cut was like 2007 or 2008 or something.
Yeah.
So you had to watch the director's cut and then wait for a final cut, which had some additional scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah, a little more cleaned up. I still to this day don't know if you're supposed to watch the director's cut or the final cut. I don't know.
I don't either.
I'm sure someone has the answer to that, but
I think the final cut is like the same goal, same objective as the director's cut, where like you're supposed to think Deckard is like a replicant by the end of it. Like all the signs are there, but nobody explicitly says it. I just think there's some extra scenes out of for context. I can't remember what though, because I looked up the differences forever ago.
Me too. I did too, but I still don't understand. Like, even though I know that some of the differences not off the top of my head, I don't know what like the internet considers. Because I know, what they're. I'm trying to think of another movie that's done this before, where they've changed everything. It doesn't really matter, but whatever. There are
movies that I hope they do a director's cut where they change everything. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right.
Like the movie Passengers with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. I wish there was a director's cut that rearranged everything with that movie.
That'd be something. Adele told Jennifer Lawrence not to take that role. I don't know. That's what BuzzFeed tells me every day.
That's so funny.
I'm just saying, do with anything?
You shouldn't do the role. I'm just saying, you shouldn't do it. It's always easy to forget Adele talks like that because she sings so elegantly. Yeah. And then when she talks, she's like, "Hello, what's going on over here? What are we doing
but it's
here?"
like it's not the proper English accent. It's like almost Cockney a little bit. That's funny. Anyways, really like Akira. Really sent me down a nice little anime vibe that I'm enjoying right now. And again, when I'm done with this, I'll probably
never watch it. What I wanted to say about that movie is I didn't watch it until we did. Nobody's gonna be able to find these podcasts anymore. Because I think I took the feeds down or something. They were too much.
Limited edition.
Yeah, but when we did a tournament podcast, we did 1988 movies, I think, and I think we did a smaller bracket for that because it was like there's no way we can watch, all these old ass movies, and there's a lot fewer of them in that decade and that year specifically. But Akira was one of them, and that got like a U.S. release that year, I think, because I'm pretty sure we did our homework before we did.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I saw it. And I was like, Jesus, this movie.
No wacky wonder. Stuff, man.
Yeah, it's wacky, but like no wonder it's so influential on like every.
It's the other. Like, I mean, even as much as like Nope from last year. Like I
was literally googling that on my phone to be like, did Nope make a reference? I'm pretty sure they made a reference.
Yeah, Jordan Peele got the motorcycle scene in. Yeah. He's like, I finally got the motorcycle skit in because classically he was originally supposed to do the movie. That's been talked about forever.
Yeah, it was between him and Taika at one point, and then Taika, I think, moved on to something
Leonardo
else.
DiCaprio was attached to it at some points.
Wow.
Yeah, like way, way long ago.
I say just don't. I mean, I know the technology.
Because every version I've ever heard of has always been like in Neo, New York. I'm like, I'm out. So in Neo, New York, there's going to be like the two main characters are Tetsuo and Kaneda. Like.
They're gonna change.
Not that there's not Japanese people in New York, but like Kevin. It makes more sense that it's Japan because like it's about World War III and like they I don't know, and like even the stadium that it takes place in, like the cultural importance of that stadium for the entire nation of Japan is like it's a big deal. They built it for the Olympics like in whenever it was there in the 80s, and like it was a big deal for Japan economically and everything like that. So the symbolism of it getting destroyed at the end by people's sins or whatever the movie's supposed to mean, it's thematic and everything like that. I'm brushing over it because like that would take forever to get into what that actually means. So being productive a little bit.
The fact that you mentioned that reminds me to be excited for the Ghost of Tsushima movie that's going to come out because they're dead set on being like, this is a Japanese movie and needs Japanese actors.
Nobody is like pitching that movie and being like, well, in Arizona, on a little town called Tsushima, like. Yeah. So it's okay to leave things in their source country.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Chad Stahelski, the guy who he is most famously done the John Wick movies, he's doing the Ghost of Tsushima movie next. And he was saying, he was looking at an example in a recent interview. He was looking at The Last of Us, and he was like, see, you can make a great video game adaptation. You just have to show care for the material that you're adapting. He's saying all the right things about this
he wants it to be in Japanese too, which
he's like, no, I want it to be straight up like an actual Japanese movie. And I'm like, that's freaking awesome, dude. Like, yes, I'm so pumped. That's a great story, by the way.
It's a wonderful story.
Yeah, that's a very cinematic story. It has every right to be on a big screen like that.
A really good action in that game. Speaking of
let me tell you something about action, dude. It's my dudesy shirt for those that I am showing off my dudesy shirt that says wool on it for those that are listening.
And I'm showing off my Mandalorian shirt, which had a lot of action in it this week.
It did have I love Ahmed Best. Has nothing to do with anything. Just love that guy.
No
spoilers or nothing.
No specific reason at all. Love that guy.
Yeah, that guy's great. Anyway, the pick 5 list that we're doing this week. Trying to see how high I can get it every week. We're doing in honor of John Wick 4 coming out, which we're both super amped to see. I'm seeing it.
Top 10 most hype movies I've ever been for in my entire life.
Oh yeah, dude. I am just. The reviews have gotten me even more psyched because now
I'm
now we're seeing an actual aggregate score and stuff. Yeah, I know. Like if it were like 55, like Shazam or Quantumania, I'd be like, oh, they're probably wrong or whatever. Like I would just kind of
but now I'm like, oh, of course it's the best movie ever. Whatever. We'll see.
3 hours and everybody makes it sound like it's earned. Like I can't.
Not one time did I heard anyone going, and it was way too. I didn't hear anybody say anything negative about the length, which I know it is like 3 hours, right? It's like 2:45 or something like that.
It's like 2:45, 2:50. Yeah. Anyway, we were gonna do. I think our first thought process was, well, let's do something for Shazam or John Wick because it's relevant. We're always trying to stay relevant here on because it's current cinema, not yesterday's cinema.
That's right.
But we were gonna do like something like best action scenes, and then both of us were like, we would just pick the same 5. Like we would just pick like 4 raid scenes.
It'd be the Raid and Mad Max Fury.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly. All that's 5 right there.
So we came up with a rule to do action scenes from before the year from movies that came out before the year 2000. So these are, it's sad to say, these are considered retro action scenes. And I'm just really disheartened to say that because I remember those years very vividly, very much.
This is pre-turn of the century, pre-turn of the century action sequences. So.
Oh my gosh, dude. And I still feel like we're going to have a lot of commonalities, but at least this creates a more interesting discussion.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And I think both of us, as we were crafting our lists, which we didn't reveal to each other yet, we were both like, had the same logic in terms of like the type of action you're getting out of each scene. Mm-hmm. There's only 2 scenes for me that are very similar stylistically, maybe 3. I have 3 hand-to-hand combat scenes, but the settings are very different.
Okay.
But yeah, I do have we talked about a shootout and a chase scene and stuff like that, and I put that in here too. I'll go ahead and I'm going to start with my chase scene, and this one's none of these are like underrated or anything. That was another one we talked about too, is doing underrated action scenes. And it was like, how do you even prove that?
Sometimes it's easy to quantify something that's underrated, but like I don't know. Yeah, like you're talking about a single scene.
Enough. Like what?
Yeah, right. Like you remember in Kiss of the Dragon when he hit all those police guys with the batons or whatever? I think that was pretty underrated. I was like, well, everyone screamed at my theater for that one. Like, okay, whatever. I guess it's not underrated then. I don't know. By the way, great fight scene in Kiss of the Dragon.
Yeah, very much so. I've seen.
It's got the
a lot when it first came out, the home video, kind of like Encino Man, but like haven't seen it in a while since then. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go with the chase scene first, and then it's Terminator 2: Judgment Day, the semi truck chase scene.
Nice.
Again, it's kind of obvious, but this was for me at this age because this movie was like what 91? I think it was 91. So it was very much well. First off, I was barely allowed to watch it because it's R-rated, and that was very controlled in my house. Like when you could watch R-rated movies.
Yeah.
I think it was like 13 or 14 when my parents were like, "Okay, let's see."
My mom
movies.
cared. My dad used to sneak me into rated R movies all the time. So.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I actually, I remember my first R-rated movie. It was a big deal to me, and it was another Schwarzenegger movie. It was Eraser. It was a big
I saw Eraser in theaters. I saw
Yeah.
Eraser in theater. My dad snuck me out of Sunday school to go see that movie in theaters.
That's awesome.
He did not like that my mom was raising me Catholic, so that's a little Kyle Corner lore right there.
Interesting. You had a religious war going on in their house.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
way underneath the bellows of that
Yeah.
family unit. Yeah.
But yeah, Terminator 2: Judgment. I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say about if you've seen the chase scene that I'm talking about, where Arnold is on a bike with John Connor, and he's got that shotgun, pointed behind it. It's a very iconic scene.
It's so cool. Yeah.
Immediately iconic. And the semi, the thing that makes it one of the best action scenes is the fact that everything's practical before James Cameron made everything favorite. CG. But like, this semi is literally going off of a bridge, like overpass, under where like this whatever the sewer crap is, whatever you call those little, you know what I'm talking about. In LA, they have those.
It's a spillway.
Spillway. Thank you, Jesus. I never looked at it.
It's where John Travolta and all of his racing hooligans raced in Greece.
Yeah, exactly. They film a lot there all the time.
Yeah,
I love that area in Hollywood.
Well, and that scene is like culturally relevant because like Grand Theft Auto has ripped it off. Like everything has paid homage to it in some way. San Andreas, I think, was the GTA.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's right. And they put it in they put that, at least I should say, they put that area of the map because it's a very famous area in GTA 5. It's in there. But there's no. I think there is actually a heist scene where you have to.
There's a lot. There's actually quite a bit of missions that go through there.
Yeah, you have to go through the underground, like the sewer level, and then you go into the spillway.
I think it's like the subway to underground to the spillway.
Right.
Area.
Yeah, that's right. Because you have to go on a bike and switch characters and stuff like that. Okay, so never mind. There are some scenes that actually occur there in GTA 5. But yeah, this scene is just amazing. Not much more to say about it. I mean, if you've seen it, you know why I chose it. So Kyle, go ahead with your first pick.
So I'm not gonna do it in any order. Since you picked car, I'll go car for chase scenes or whatever. Nice. I did Ronin.
Oh my God, yes.
It's a 7-minute chase scene. I just watched it. Not the movie, but the chase scene. 7 minutes of no just talking, like. Right? Almost no talking, and like 3 people in a car, and like I'm telling you, man, like to this day, it's still maybe in the top 5 greatest car sequences of all time, if not, in the top 3 or 2 or whatever. It is.
I think if you're not counting, if you're removing Fury Road from the equation, which is probably the best version.
Yeah, there's all 5 of the greatest action sequences involving cars.
Yes, right. But I think French Connection. For me, like just having, I think I saw it like a few times now, like twice in my life, but knowing the history of that car sequence and how they didn't get any permits or any rights, they just did it. They just did it out in traffic. And
when they did it 30 years before Ronin did, you know what I mean? And Ronin is obviously inspired heavily by that scene.
Very much so.
Even like because there's a lot of like in the cameras in the car shots. A lot of camera on the hood shots, a lot of they take a lot of that inspiration from French Connection.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but Ronin was like, I remember watching that movie. I think we did a car chase.
We did, yeah.
I think that's why I saw it. I saw the movie because everybody, like literally you and
it's a great movie too. Yeah.
Every list imaginable has Ronin up there for best car chase.
Yeah. By the way, this is my list. Everyone's gonna be like, well, of course you have that on my list. Yeah, because my list is right. And same with you. Like you were saying, like Terminator 2. Like I know it's kind of a no-duh. It is a no-duh pick. What's also one of the best, so of course it's a no-duh pick. Yeah. You guys, sometimes it's Occam's razors, guys. Sometimes it is what it is because that's what it is. It's
that visual, like I don't know, immediately iconic visual of like a giant ass truck going.
I like leaning over to people who have never seen it before who are watching it and going, "They did all that real." That's real. They really wrecked that 18-wheeler.
It's the Lord of the Rings Viggo Mortensen.
It is. He really broke his toe there. They really threw that 18-wheeler off a bridge.
I want to turn that into a reverse meme now, where Aragorn breaks his foot for real, and I just go, How you doing? You doing all right? And people, what the hell is that about? I'm just asking how you. I just want to see how you're doing. Yeah. I have nothing of trivial to say.
It's a mid-act one checkup.
Yeah. I certainly have no Q&A facts about this. Anyway, Ronan's fantastic, though. I remember being completely blown away by that car chase scene. And I don't remember who directed that movie. It's a real shame that whoever it is.
You know, really there's only some way to find out. It's too bad. It's so sad.
We don't believe in the internet on this show. I'll go with another one. All right. Yeah. This is one of the hand-to-hand combat scenes. But this is Jackie Chan doing his thing in his prime, dude. This is
which one should you go with?
Who Am I?
Okay, nice.
Yeah, on the roof.
You didn't go with like Drunken Master, or
I didn't watch those enough.
That's awesome. I like that you went with Who Am I.
I watched Who Am I, Meals on Wheels, and
Meals on Wheels, yeah.
Rumble in the Bronx. So like there were like 3 that I watched repeatedly, and my brother loved the Drunken Master stuff more than I did.
I think most people do. I think like that's the one that hit mainstream more than all of them.
Yeah.
If I had to take a guess, that's why I like that you went with Who Am I. That's such
There's one that's like something about a Condor, Operation Condor, or something like that. I think I watched that one quite a bit too. But there was definitely like a stream of Jackie Chan movies, just a wave of them, just flooded the American market.
He was the man.
But Who Am I I think that was like pre him flooding American markets with all those movies, because this was a Japanese movie. Obviously it ended up coming out stateside, and I watched it obviously over and over. But the rooftop scene is most famous for the fact that it never ends. It's like an 8-minute scene of him fighting like 3 really strong guys, and there is a famous, to me at least in my brain, a really famous part of him and the guy he's fighting just kicking each other in the shins over and over again. And then they both take a breath at the same time and rub their shins like.
Yeah.
He's got that like interweaving like natural comedy into his fight. Nothing forced about his comedy.
Yeah,
it's always like natural, and like that would make sense that fighters would do that. They'd be like, hold on.
Right.
I think is that the movie that ends with that big stunt where he slides down the building. I think that's Who Am I, right?
I don't remember how that movie ends.
But there is a rooftop scene where he like confronts a bunch of baddies, and I can't even remember the plot of the movie other than the premise of it being the title of the movie. Like he doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
That's all I remember. And he knows how to fight. It's like a Born Identity type premise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do recall that big stunt of him like grabbing, it's like some type of banner or something, and he uses that to slide down. It's like a building that has like this type of architecture. So he's just like for real, he did for real, because he's Jackie Chan. He slid down the thing all the way down to the bottom and shot it.
Coolest.
Just freaking madman, dude.
I don't care how pro-China he is, Look how cool he is. Look how cool he is.
I was watching that going, this bootlicker is so talented.
You can be both.
You can be
cool and a bootlicker.
But it's a great time. Highly recommend just
really
going and seeing out that fight. Like I could not believe, like when I looked at the YouTube clip, I don't remember the fight being that long. So when I watched it, I was like, oh my god, they're still going. It's the best, dude. The
ones that end up staying the long, like I love it when you're like, oh god, wow, that was a long one,
It's like the kitchen fight in. We're not going to dwell on it because that's not what we're here to do with this list. But the kitchen fight,
but it would be on the list if we were doing top.
Oh my god, because the kitchen fight in the Raid 2 is like these guys are in one location and it's 2 of them and they're fighting for literally 13 minutes. Like it's insane how much they're asked to do and keep it fresh and have variety.
Yeah, I remember showing that there, and they're like, "Man, they look so tired." I'm like, "They are.
They are. They like
look at this scene."
You think they had to? You think they said, "Cut, let's clean up the blood and start from"?
Yeah, right. Oh. We're gonna cut this. We're gonna take this over tomorrow. No.
They're professional stuntmen doing work. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's another one of yours?
So you gave a kicky punchy scene. I'm gonna do kind of one as well. This kind of fits my classic and original, fight scene. So this would be a kung fu scene. It's from Fist of Fury. It's the dojo fight scene where Bruce Lee fights like 30 dudes. It's super good. I really like this scene a lot. I like this movie a lot too. This Chen Zhen series, which like Jet Li did a Chen Zhen movie, and Donnie Yen, who did a movie called Legend of the Fist: The Return of Chen Zhen. FYI, one of the greatest action kung fu movies of all time. And it's a sequel, to this movie. Couldn't put that on the list, but I had to give it a shout out because it came out, in 2000 something. Fist of Fury, though, man, this scene's really good, dude, and it's just like Bruce Lee doing his Bruce Lee thing. Yeah, but this is my favorite of, like, I know everyone likes Enter the Dragon. I know Fist of Fury as well. I'm not trying to sell this as a Bruce Lee underdog movie by any means. But like even from all of his other movies, this is the one that always stands out to me because like I just really like how you orchestrate a scene with so many people coming at you. And when it's always kind of corny because they kind of come one at a time. It's all part of the ballet. It's part of the dance. And there's such a good build up to this scene.
I love, by the way, this is a visual gag, but I love when you see extras preparing to run up to the one person that's fighting, and they're just doing like this in the background. That's it. They're running in place, but they're like moving their arms a lot, like they're doing something, but they're not.
And back then in the 70s, they're so much more animated, so it's like it's a little goofier. And that kind of leads to my next point is like when he walks into the dojo in the middle of everybody, he's kind of slowly like unbuttoning his like gi, and then when he like flips it off like Jet Li does, like everybody in the background goes, whoa, they fall back and they get in the defensive position. But it's like 30 dudes who did it, and it's just so funny, but earned also. It's not like comedic how all these people are afraid of this one guy, and like Bruce Lee just like he's kind of an asshole. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I unfortunately had the luck of learning all the like shitty stuff about him, and I'm like, oh man, because like when you're growing up, he's kind of like this infallible, like, cool guy or whatever. Anyways, he's super cool in this movie. He's earned being cool, and I just really like this scene quite a bit. It's a classic. It's one of the all-time greats, in terms of
I don't think I know I've seen this fight scene because as you're describing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that visual. Like I know. I just don't know if I've seen the movie all the way through because my brother was the one that I mainly watched the kung fu stuff with.
Sure.
So it was like kind of dependent on when he put it on that I would watch.
Yeah, I feel like everybody talks about Enter the Dragon and the O'Hara fight and all that stuff, and then the mirror fights at the end. Like I feel like everyone always talks about those, but like
I can't believe you mentioned the O'Hara. I was just gonna mention that's one of my it's on my list is the O'Hara.
See, fight. Everyone always mentions it. You can segue into that one if you want.
It's just because there's like, since we're on Bruce Lee, it's just because there's like a whole narrative context to the fight that I felt added a lot of weight to it because
he's fighting. Fight. Yeah,
he's fighting the person that killed his sister, right? Is that what it is, or daughter, sister?
Yeah. I forget exactly, but
the point is like that he is fighting somebody that he has every reason to just kill with his bare hands right then and there, but he shows so much restraint through every move and just deflects because that was his fighting style from the beginning. Was always about defense, much like the Jedi. When we do that, we're adjusting to our shirts a lot. Sorry to the audio listeners. But obviously there does come a moment where he out of necessity has to kill the guy because he's he tries to kill him first. I think after he actually wins the fight because this is all happening in a tournament or whatever. I haven't seen the movie in a long time, but it's been a hot second. I do remember the mirror fight, but I watched it back on YouTube and I was like, oh, there's a lot less mirrors than I remember. Like there's a lot. Well,
and my problem with the mirror fight is
shots of him walking through, and that's it.
Like how many action movies pays homage to that? And not that I'm sick of it. I'm not sick of it at all, but I'm like seen that 1,000 times. Yeah.
John Wick.
Even John Wick did it. Yeah, I just rewatched those movies and I'm like, I forgot they had this whole goddamn
the mirror thing.
Fight scene.
At least we got to watch Ruby Rose eat it. That was nice.
Cool. Yeah. In hindsight, that scene aged really well.
He's seeing you.
Such a
No, you won't.
Sure. Yeah, however he does it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I love that they took that mirror concept and turned it into, again, not to make it about a modern action movie, but in the third John Wick movie, they played with glass instead of mirrors.
Yeah.
And like where a certain, like there's a part where Zero surprises him and John Wick fires a shot and it's bulletproof glass. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, they could have done so much more.
It feeds into the sword fighting too, because they'll use the edges of the glass to like get the sword stuck and stuff like that. God, those movies are so well crafted. It's out of control.
And I love that Zero. I can't remember the actor's name. I'm sure you remember.
Mark Dacascos.
Thank you. I love that his character is basically just a big assassin nerd. Like he's a nerd for other assassins that are famous. So he's just excited the whole time that he gets to fight.
But like, he is good too. You know what I mean? Like
he's he even needed like that moment of like I'm not very confident right now because I was just defeated. Was that a good fight or?
Yeah, like, that's a good fight, wasn't it, John? Yeah, you got a sword sticking out of him. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
Kills me, especially because at the end of the movie when Morpheus asks him, "Are you mad?"
Yeah,
and the sound editing clearly put extra bass in the to like emphasize how mad he was. And it like comes through my speakers all boomy and stuff. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
I like that quite a bit, and I like every time someone says it was John Wick, and they go, "Oh."
That's so good.
Everybody, yeah.
Anyway, the O'Hara fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's another one of yours?
The O'Hara fight. I really like that fight. I only said that one and be like, that's what everyone says. Again, it's an obvious one because it's literally one of the best of all time.
Right.
It is. It's
it
absolutely. Is. I was trying to go. I'm like, how can I represent Bruce Lee without going? What's the most famous one? Which is that one. In fact, if you look at most people's lists, that's the number one fight for a lot of people. So which it is. The storytelling within the fighting, like you're saying, is out of this world. Wanted to make sure that was done before we skipped over it. So we did that. So my next one, it's heist themed. I think
I have a heist one in mind too.
Well, great. All right. Maybe it's the same one.
I swear to God, if it's not the same.
If it's not this one, I just want to let you know.
Ocean's 12 dancing around lasers, I swear to God, Kyle.
You're the Oceans fan in this podcast. Don't you dare. Everybody in
techno music and he's
listening
dancing.
Land, Kyle does not like the Oceans movies. That's what's trying to get right. No. It's Heat, right? Did you pick Heat?
Yeah, the street shootout in Heat.
God, thank God, Jesus. So let's just talk about that. First off, I wanted to open up by saying I wanted to represent heist as not a subgenre, but like as a category in this list because I think heists are the easiest and coolest action sequence that you can do and make it feel real, exciting, like there's stakes and everything like that. And it's the most templated and reused thing, but like I never tire of it, even when something kind of like what's that 999 movie that came out, which is like it's kind of a mids movie, but like it's about heist and it's kind of freaking cool, it's super easy to make heist cool.
I don't think they even pull off one successful heist. Like the movie's about the heist going to shit, right? Isn't it? And they end up on the run the whole time.
Pretty much.
So I love that type of movie too. Even when the heist goes horribly. Whereas with the Ocean's movies, they get so cute and it's annoying. Like, I liked it the first time, and then when they kept releasing more Ocean's movies, even the 8 one, which I don't hate any of these movies. They just get a little more annoying each entry.
Yeah.
With how cute they have to be with their twists and turns. And I'm like, just have somebody die every now and then and put some stakes in this damn thing. Like, nobody's that clever all the time with heists. Like, Heat was a great example of a heist going to shit completely.
Yeah, it goes really wrong. And like, of course, if you want to like talk into the weeds of the movie, it's got like the all-time great diner scene that everyone loves. And it's like, oh, the diner scene. Oh, have you seen Heat? You talk about the diner scene? I get it. I love that scene a lot. We're not talking about the whole movie though. We're talking about just the action sequences. And this one, for the longest time in Hollywood record, had the most blank shots like rang out like in one scene. The most live shots or blank shots or whatever, like shot like to capture a scene or whatever.
Yeah, because they're not live.
I think Rambo maybe beat that or something. I don't know.
Right. Not the recent one that was like to the Old Town Road song or whatever, that shitty one. The one before that came out like in 2007 or something like that. I think that one has some type of record for shells dropped or whatever. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And that scene is just amazing, even from and that's a 10-minute sequence. I mean, we picked a lot of really long scenes. You and I, again, like when you let a scene like it just really to let breathe and everything like that, I think it really captures people in some kind of daze of spectacle and amazement.
Right.
And like from the moment they walk into the bank until like I think they get scattered or whatever, I think it's like a 10-minute sequence. And man, the scene is just one of the all-time greats, and it's like inspired every Grand Theft Auto that's ever come out. It's inspired so many different action sequences. Every heist movie that's ever come out, everyone's like, well, it's no Heat, like it is the bar in terms of sequences. And
movie is this is one of those. I think we already talked about another 3-hour movie that doesn't feel 3 hours. Well, I guess John Wick 4 is 3 hours, but this is talk about a 3-hour movie that doesn't feel 3 hours. That's my point.
No, this feels like
this one flies by, and I'm like, holy crap, that was 3 hours? Yeah, it's so good.
Great cast. It's great. Everybody's great in this movie, man. And then they've got all your classic, like, archetypical, like, stuff, but, like, man, this created a lot of those molds, you know?
Yeah.
In terms of what people are, types of people in a heist movie.
It was a definitive mid-90s movie where, like, this is a perfect encapsulation of everything that's going on in pop culture with, like, all the Pacino impressions, and this is, like, where De Niro is denouring extra hard and some coffee. You know, like...
You're gonna do what you do.
Sorry, I'm doing I'm doing a visual joke for the audio listeners. Sorry. I wanted to shout out as well in that action scene that I think it's either the sound editing. I'm sure it was not that loud when they shot it, but it was something to do with the sound editing and mixing together.
Yeah.
How they amplified the gunshots to make it sound just violently loud, like you're on the street corner with them. And like we said, because they're blanks or whatever, I assume it wasn't that loud. I don't know how that works at all with guns.
I'm sure all that stuff is edited.
Yeah. But I think they did amplify the sound to make it sound more intense and more like life-threatening. Like
it's a visceral scene in terms of it feels like you're there, you know, like
it
you're
does.
saying.
Very stressful.
And it's very realistic.
Because those shots on a street corner like that, well, it's not a corner, but on a street like that would echo like. And they really captured that and made me feel really stressed out watching it.
And it's not a bullets ballet scene, you know. It's not like a
they're cover.
They're cover like it's very practical, like what you're seeing and everything like that.
It's not like Equilibrium where they're dancing with guns or whatever, which I love, but it's not that.
Me too. You know what? I love that movie. There's a katana fight at the end of that movie, dude.
Yeah. So good. Oh man, it's so ridiculous. The ending villain guy that he ends up having like a gun duel with, and they're kind of dancing around with the gun.
Yeah.
That dude is like in the same shape or size that I kind of am. He's like a little lighter than me. Sure. And the fact that he's so agile against Christian Bale is so freaking funny. Like, it's just so funny to me.
Well, he's the boss, you know?
I know, he's like the boss.
And John Wick 4, they got, not Ray Park, who's the guy, Scott Adkins in a big fat suit. Yeah. I cannot wait to see him pull off some, like, high kicks in that fat suit, dude. By the way, Scott Adkins, one of the greatest stunt choreographers.
Go watch, if you want to see him in an actual lead role where he's has to do a lot, go watch Avengement. It's a really fun movie.
Avegement's amazing. All the Undisputed movies are bad, but the action is some of the best action sequences you'll ever watch.
That's why I've never watched any of them, because I heard
they're bad. No. I'll shoot you a YouTube video. It'll have all of them spliced together. You don't have to.
Oh, thank goodness! Don't have to. We'll get.
They're really good. In fact, I'm telling you, they're some of the best. They're some of the best because I think he had a lot of control over the action sequences in those. So it's like they're really well done. It's just like the kind of garbage movies. So
exactly.
What are you gonna do?
Yes, Heat was definitely the street shootout was definitely mine. So I'll just go to my last one then. And this one just made the cut.
I have two more. Should I do mine?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Actually,
you should have two more too. I thought.
Well, you mentioned Heat.
Oh, okay.
And then you mentioned the O'Hara fight, and that led me to talking about that.
Oh, that's right.
So yeah, I have one left.
Okay, so let me do my. Okay, so I have this is like what we were just talking about, like a ballet of bullets type of shootout scene. Had to get a little John Woo on here. Had to give Hard Boiled some love here. This is the hospital shootout scene. The last 20 minutes of this movie is this scene, but it's spliced together with a whole lot of other stuff. So like, it's not a 20-minute action sequence by any means, but there's a one shot in this thing. I don't know if you know the scene I'm talking about. Jeff,
I've seen the movie one time.
I'll
like maybe 8 years ago. I can't remember.
Here.
I only remember like there's like a scene kind of early on in the movie where it's like in a cafe of some kind. That's
if you want.
That's
that's a tea shop. Yeah, at the very beginning, like where he slides down the banister and that's why I chose.
That's John
this, you know
Woo.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is all the doves flying everywhere, and like if you want to watch that scene, I just saying while I'm talking. It's a really quick scene. The way that he uses like debris and smoke and everything like that, like the shootouts just feel really real, even though like the fact that so many people are not getting hit during these scenes,
Yeah.
or so many people are getting hit while they're doing all these moves, it's just there's kind of a not a comedy to it, but it's just like, whoa, this is really ridiculous.
Yeah.
And this is just John Woo at its finest. I think a lot of people like The Killers. I like The Killers. I think that movie's great too. But like, this is
that one I haven't seen yet.
Oh, it's so good. This is like this whole sequence though in the hospital is just so cool, and it's like it's very video gamey, you know, like it's inspired. We have Max Payne because of this, you know what I mean? Max Payne is very much, you know, inspired off of John Woo and everything like that. And it's just one of my favorite shootout scenes of all time. They're jumping through windows. You know, they're like literally side diving through windows. The only thing that's missing is slow motion. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Well, and they add that, but in a way that '90s movies did slow motion.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like really
it's not bullet time. Yeah, it's just bad slow motion. Yeah. And it's just one of my favorite action sequences ever. I think it's just super good, and I think that a lot of people are trying to invoke this, especially The Matrix, whenever they're trying to do. A shootout scene, especially when you're doing dual akimbo pistols or shotguns.
I can't believe it's still going. Like I'm at 90 seconds and they're in the elevator now, and it's still one.
Yeah. It's a really impressive scene for an 80s movie, you know, and it's very complicated, much like the Protector scene with the staircase when he's like running up, and it's like that's a 7-minute scene of him running to different floors and like beating the shit out of people. Mm-hmm. It's like if one guy sneezes during that whole thing.
Yeah.
All right, we have to put new plywall there to re-blow up and replace new explosives and everything like that. And the fact that you would have the courage to try and shoot so much of it in one scene, especially a scene that you're watching right now, which again, everybody, if you're trying to see what I'm talking about, it is just if you just type in hard-boiled hospital fight, it's like the very first thing that pops up.
Part of me wonders, I think that when they got in the elevator, they didn't actually go anywhere, and they just...
Yeah, I
got on the same floor and reset.
Yeah. It's just a different set. Yeah. They just pushed a new set. Yeah.
This is so cool though. It is a lot of walking through corridors, but this fact that all the extras are doing so much heavy lifting and like.
And this is just one. This is just a one. Like, there's a lot more bigger moments like during this whole fight scene, but this one scene that's just shot in one scene is
very
just really
much so of the era. I mean, of the decade of all of those Area 51 shooters, it plays exactly like that.
Yeah, very much so.
Popping up out of nowhere, you gotta shoot them.
Yeah, people are just popping up. Oh, just henchmen. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a civilian. Don't shoot me. Like one of those things.
Yeah.
Anyway, my final one just barely made the cut because it's a 1999 movie, and it's obviously I have to select it because it's one of my favorite movies, or probably my favorite movie ever made. And it's got to be the Matrix subway fight. It's hand-to-hand combat.
I didn't have the Matrix on my list. That's stupid.
Oh, okay. I know the Matrix.
That's my number. I was really hoping you were going to choose a different fight scene, but I had to choose that one because it's legit the best fight scene.
It is. I almost went with not the lobby scene because that one's a little played out to me, but by this point. But the first fight between Morpheus is fighting Neo.
It's such a good. That scene's so good, dude.
That fight is.
Stop trying to hit me and hit
when
me.
You're really introduced to. Oh, they're going to do actual kung fu in this movie. Like that's when you really understand the scope of the action in the movie. But I feel like the subway scene is the best of both worlds. Like you see the gunplay and you see the throat chop, which is the best part of the whole movie.
It's the best part of the whole.
That edit you sent me of like him just being repeatedly throat chopped is so
over and over and over. It's so good.
And it's like they'll do a few more moves and then it'll come out of nowhere again. Oh.
But it's always as like Neo's the edit is so good because it actually looks like he's going in to do that.
Yeah,
you know? Like...
exactly. I wish I had talent for that.
Yes.
But yeah, the subway scene is definitely the one that I come away with thinking about the most, or the one that, even though I've seen this movie hundreds of times by now, the scene that I get most excited to get back to. Like
same here.
When he's running in the subway, he's getting to believe. I get chills. Like I'm like,
dude, we're here. The build up to that when he stops, what is he doing? And Morpheus like he's beginning to believe, and he turns around and he even does like the really confident like I'm getting in my fight position. Yeah. Ooh, I get full body chills even just thinking about it because it's so earned, it's so good, and it's so perfect. And it's a nice Western call out with the newspaper acting like tumbleweed.
It's a tumbleweed, you know? and then when they both run out of bullet, and it's a great use of bullet time there. I think that's the best use to me. That bullet time.
That's the funny shot of the movie. Yeah.
Again, people love to call out the rooftop bullet time scene because that was like the one in trailers and all that stuff. But the bullet time scene where they're in midair on wires, I assume. and like shooting at each other and blocking each other's shots at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they're equals. That's the whole premise of the quadrilogy, whatever you want to call it. That was the best capture of the bullet time, in my opinion. And then when they both run out and empty, and it's such a great moment that captures their differences when they're both like, "You're empty, so are you." And Neo does this pretty flip up, and Agent Smith just stands up. I'm like, this is the difference between the two of them. Like Neo is like all about flourishes and just coming off like this master fighter, and Agent Smith is just like, I just want to get the job done. I just want to get the job done and go home.
Right.
It's so good.
And it's just a really well choreographed scene, like when I'm thinking about like, hey, what's a good kung fu scene, what's a good action sequence, especially anything that's hand to hand, maybe not so much the gunplay and stuff like that, but maybe that fits into this as well. It's like it's choreographed like a dance number, you know what I mean? Like to the point where it's so specific and so beautiful, and it's just one of my favorite art forms in the whole movie medium or TV and everything. Is just someone who knows how to because the thing is that you have to build a fight scene around what it's going to end up looking like on screen. Not like how you have it in your head is probably not the way how it's actually going to end up on screen and everything like that, just because of camera angles and cuts and everything like that. So for you to have to piece something together and then some editor have to figure out some way to edit together and it turn out something like this and not something like Transporter 3. I don't know if you know that, like that really famous fight scene like in the piano bar. Have you seen Transporter 3?
I've seen the first one way more than once, and the second and third I saw like one time, and I was like, all right. Like I just never revisited.
Let me just say, because I've never seen Transporter 3, because after 2 I was like, no, not watching these movies anymore.
Yeah, Transporter 1 was like, you should have stopped.
Transporter 1 even was ridiculous, but then the second one was just like, we're gonna be more dumb, and not in a fun way like Cranked it.
Yeah, no,
in like a dumb way where I'm like annoyed. Anyways, there's a scene in there that like, you know how many times like they cut in that scene in Queen, where it's like every time someone says a word it cuts. Like this cuts. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
And Queen, the Queens of the Queen movie, like it's considered one of the most.
Worst... that's right. It won Best Editing because nobody actually watched the movie that voted.
Yeah, and like there's a scene where they're sitting in a cafe and like it cuts literally every second. Like
that's right. Yeah, even people that, and I think I mentioned this here. Even people that don't know anything about movie editing watch that and go, "This is bad editing." Like even people that have no film education at all, they're like, "This
is worse than that." And why I'm winding up to say like this Transporter thing or whatever, it's like that's a high dollar, not even a high dollar, but like that was like a big budget franchise or whatever.
It was a franchise by that point.
That like people just showed up and phoned the fuck in, that fight sequence. Even like Jason Statham looked so bored during that entire fight sequence. But when you take something like The Matrix or anything like The Raid or anything like that, where it's just they're so involved in like the process and everything like that, and they don't cut so much. They let the scene breathe and everything like that. And the cut is emphasized by maybe a position switch or really like a haymaker or something like that. Just the knowing when to cut the camera and when to put and when to cut back and everything like that. Like something like The Matrix just nailed. And I'm telling you, like to this day, that sequence in the subway is probably in my top 5 greatest fight sequences of all time. I know
probably same here.
Night, that's like rate this, rate that, rate all 5, but like this is definitely one of them for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially when like I set my own rules for only mention one movie one time from a franchise or whatever. I would only pick one Raid 2 fight, as impossible it would be.
But then I'd pick a Raid 1 fight.
And then I'd pick a Raid,
No. Usually I'll do one from the franchise. Yeah,
exactly. So like, yes, it would totally be in my top 5 all time for sure. And I gotta also give a shout out to Don Davis who did the score, because just his use of the staccato like French or I guess it's just a brass section overall, where they're doing like a and it's like they're notes that are like clashing with each other. They're like on top of each other in a very unpleasant way, but it just fits so perfectly when Smith is beating the crap out of him. And that's most of the fight. It's been getting the crap kicked out of him anyway. So
which
is like perfect, again, a narrative reason to care about the fight as well. Similar to the Arhara fight, you're watching this going, Neo's just getting the crap and keeps getting back up, and then he says, "I am Neo," and then he's like, "All right, I think that's enough fighting," and he runs away.
Yeah, I'm out. He got hit. That guy got hit by a subway. I think I'm out.
Oh man, what the shit? He took my phone. It's great. It's right after that. I've seen that movie so much that I'm literally playing out the rest of the movie in my head.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our pick
because that was your last one, right? So yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Sweet. I'll go over what's the box office looking like this week in America. America. Okay, so we got the very underperforming top 5. Not really. It's not that bad. But, Hollywood would tell you otherwise. Number 5 is Quantumania, still holding strong. Number 4 is 65, Adam Driver. We have to move. We need to move. I need to work on Adam Driver.
That's better than Will's. Yeah.
Honk. Stay quiet. Stay quiet. Move. That's from the trailer. That's, for some reason, him telling the child, we need to move.
Are you going to see this? This movie looks like dog shit to me. Are you going to see this movie? No. Okay. Yeah.
I saw reviews confirm my suspicions, and I was like, yeah.
I haven't seen any reviews for it. I remember seeing the trailer, and I go, no. Yeah, I'm not seeing
that. The reason this movie was delayed 18 gazillion times is because it was bad, and they couldn't find a good...
Who, I know, but someone, big is, attached to it, right? Wasn't it, from the makers?
Raimi produced it or something? I think
yeah, so. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just a producer of Raimi or something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, Creed 3 is number 3. That's great. Number 2 is another franchise player, Scream 6, which I enjoyed. Number 1 is Shazam, Fury of the Gods, but it only, quote unquote, got 30 million, and I think it was projected to get 50, so it's definitely an underperformance.
Yeah,
at least on projections. But I'm still that's not that bad.
But I heard those projections were the 40 or the 50 that you're talking about were the lowered projections from the previous projections.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So it's so they said that they under projected, so they would hit their mark, and they still fell under.
That's a real shame.
So, but I would still argue that 35 million, maybe not for a comic book movie, pretty okay for an opening movie in general.
Definitely. That is a bummer though, but at the same time, you and I have been saying ever since James Gunn and Peter Safran took over at DC, at least privately, we've been saying to each other, if not on here all the time, that they're just going to restart everything anyway. So who cares?
I think people are eating a big bowl of who cares right now for sure. And I want to see the movie. I like the first movie quite a bit, but even me, I'm this is not a theater movie for me because who gives a shit? All this is old DC. And I know I'm gonna end up watching it and being that ended up being a lot of fun. Oops. But Oopsie. There's no urgency to it, and if I'm feeling that way, I imagine most people are too, or a lot of people.
I feel like the only exception will not be Aquaman 2. It'll be The Flash, because that one is cracking down.
Dude, I'm telling you, Tom Cruise got out of his Xeno hyperbolic time chamber to stop the world, to let everybody know that The Flash is one of the best movies he's ever seen.
He did.
You know how many times I've seen Tom Cruise say anything good about any movie that he's not in?
Yeah.
It's 0. This is the first time, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. If anything, I've seen more footage of people telling Tom to his face how his movie saved movies. Yeah. Top Gun Maverick. Because there was a clip going around, I think it wasn't from the Oscars because Tom Cruise wasn't there. I think it was the Critics' Choice Awards, something like that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the directors get whatever. It doesn't matter. One of the awards where they're congratulating themselves. And Steven Spielberg was caught going up to him, and they're because they work together. They work together on War of the Worlds and stuff like that, and Minority Report. And Spielberg is literally saying, "You saved the movie theater industry," and Tom Cruise is being his fake gracious self to people that aren't in Scientology, and because. That's the thing. If you studied Scientology on any level, they're putting up a front when it comes to people that are not in the church.
There is nothing humble about Tom Cruise.
Yeah, exactly. So
you are watching him perform.
He's being no, sir, you, the Fablemans.
Yeah,
he's doing that.
Sir, yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be fair, he did.
He did. But also, and the only thing about him that I feel is genuine is his love for movies, as an art form and a theater going experience.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So when he is saying positive things about a movie like The Flash, which up until we saw a trailer, we were this is going to be a train wreck.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes because this dude knows blockbusters.
There is no movie on earth that I gave a shit about less was The Flash, and now I'm I kind of can't wait for this movie.
I saw the trailer before in Shazam, and I was oh no, I'm really hyped for this.
And then Ben Affleck's I'm only in the movie for 5 minutes. I'm great, that's wonderful.
Even more of a reason to line up.
Yeah, that's a huge reason for me to get in there.
We actually don't dislike Ben Affleck. It's just that his Bruce Wayne is so phoned in, like in every.
It's so phoned in. He looks very bored, and he actively looked bored during all of it, like the press and everything. Like he couldn't have given a shit less. Which is why when he's like, "I'm not making movies for James Gunn recently," I'm like, that guy just doesn't give a shit about superhero stuff. Like, and I don't think it has anything to do with James Gunn. Like,
I think he's just done with the machine of superhero stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Whereas, like, if you ask him to do like you mentioned, a 5-minute cameo or a brief scene, or not even 5 minutes in a movie, he'll be like, "Yeah, sure. I don't have to put on the suit though, do I? No, okay, we're good. Yeah, I'll do it."
Yeah, well, no, we'll CG you in the suit. He's like, "Great, whatever, man.
Great, whatever.
I got some beers to drink." I know he's sober. I'm sorry. That's
terrible.
Joke. That's a bad joke. Yeah. I support your journey. Ben.
Yeah, support your journey. Good luck.
I also just support you not being in the Flash for very long too. So.
Yes. I definitely prefer more Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton is being such a badass in the trailer. And I feel like they finally got to a point where he could barely move his neck and stuff. He was like in the old Batman suits in the first 2 movies where he could barely move and do action. But now CG is caught up, so he can actually look like a badass in this movie, and I'm so pumped about that the most.
Yeah.
Especially because the Bat Pod that he's riding on looks like the one from the Christian Bale movies. Like, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's got to be deliberate. I wonder.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all the show I have for this week. And then next week, oh my God, dude, we're just going to talk about John Wick the whole time.
I am so excited for that movie.
We might as well just dedicate the whole episode to the entire franchise, because you just rewatched the movies. I just did it too. Over the course of a few weeks. I did 1 through 3. 3 was like last night, I think, or whenever I was texting you about the funniest parts of the movie. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Halle Berry spitting in the cup. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's so ridiculous. Yeah.
I
like how they awkwardly say consequences at each other a few times too. Yeah. They have there's some really awkward dialogue in that one, which I love too. Like when they just say consequences at each other, or just him just saying like we were talking about earlier. I'm like, oh, that's really bad dialogue, but I love it though. But
then they have dialogue like, "He shot my dog. I get it." Yeah, I love that.
I get it.
They add that tongue-in-cheek stuff in there. That's just perfect, and the action is borderline hilarious at parts, especially like when they're trying to shoot each other underwater, and the bullets just going like that. So John Wick sees that, and it goes, "I'm gonna go
swims
right
closer."
Up to him. Exactly. Yeah. So
I like the knife fight when they like look around, realize there's knives all around them, and then they just start breaking. And it's just so comical the way that they look around. They're like, "What are we doing?" Like. Yeah, it's just, oh man.
Right off the bat, it starts with the ridiculous scene where he's beating up an actual, I think it's a Mav. I think he's a Dallas Maverick, the basketball player in the library.
The book where he kills the guy.
Yeah, he kills the guy with a book, and I'm like, oh, that's this type of movie. We're gonna go all the way comical. But
whereas the first one like, feels pretty grounded. Not that like it could really, but and then like 2 got crazier, and the 3 is even nuttier. I just assume that they're just going in that direction at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to circle back and talk about that franchise on this podcast, because we're just gonna not do the regular routine. I might do the top, the box office top 5 at the end, because it is called Current Cinema after all. But we're just gonna talk the franchise next week.
Wick off.
We're gonna jerk Wick. We're gonna jerk Wick. All right, so find us on Twitter, I guess, current_cinema. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify and all the places you can find podcasts. And